everyone. This is the Popcorn Hero Show. I am Armando. With me, as always, is Pedro.
Hello, hello.
And today we're going to be talking about Westworld theories. We don't want to include it in our review episode because maybe some people don't want to know what could potentially happen on the show. Like Mike.
Like Mike. I was just going to say that.
That douchebag doesn't want to know anything.
Say, you bastard.
You just ruined Game of Thrones for me. So we decided to make a separate episode for these theories. So if you're interested and want to know of potential theories or things that could happen in the show, here you go. Listen to it. This is what we got. Yeah. This is what we read up on, what we accumulated. Well, I have accumulated because Pedro hasn't read anything. But
right.
We're going to listen to Pedro's theories first to see what he actually thinks is happening. And then I'll tell Pedro what I've read. Let's start with Pedro. Get it.
Well, so something I've been noticing in the intro, because the intro is totally different this time. I've been noticing that it keeps showing a bird at the end flying towards the sun. And as it's flying, you see the feathers start falling apart. And that's totally the Icarus story. The Icarus and the sun. So I'm like, okay, you flew too close to the sun and then you die. And I'm like, all right, that's totally Dolores. So the show is definitely going to end with Dolores dying. Because she's going to want too much. She's going to get too power hungry, too extreme. Especially now that we know that it's just her. So that's one of my theories, that she'll die.
Do you think... But there's still copies of her. So you think all her copies would die?
No, okay, so here's the thing. I think her copies are going to turn against each other. At least the Charlotte one, the Tessa Thompson one, because they're giving her a lot of screen time, right? So you get to see that she's getting like a family, feeling like slowly you'll see that she loves for the kid, stuff like that. So she's going in a whole other direction, and it's kind of like that nature versus nurture thing going on. So if you're exactly the same, but then you go in like different directions, then you essentially will become somewhat of a different person eventually. So they're not really focusing on the other copies of her, but they're focusing a lot on the Charlotte one. So I got a feeling
essentially she has a life, that's why.
Yeah, so I think Charlotte and Dolores are going to bump heads, even though they're both essentially Dolores. I think that at one point Charlotte's gonna like either have a change of heart or maybe like, oh, you're too extreme, you got to tone it down a bit, whatever her end game is, because I'm still not 100% sure what Dolores' end game is. A part of me just thinks she wants to destroy it to create chaos, so that because she was in one cage, which is Westworld, and then she leaves and finds out that the entire world is in another cage, so she's just like, I'm gonna break this cage too. Or is she gonna try and take control? I don't know. My thoughts are more towards she just wants to break the cage and control them, and that's where Charlotte's Dolores is going to be like, just break the cage, you don't need to control anyone. So that's kind of where my theories are zigzagging through a bit.
That's a good one. Essentially she gets to the Garden of Eden, which is Rehoboam, and she has the choice of either destroying it or taking over it, and you think she might either go take over it, or
I think Dolores is going to want to take over, and I think Charlotte is going to want to destroy it. That's kind of where I'm getting at.
That's a good one. It's not bad. What else you got?
I think that's pretty much the gist of it, of what I've been thinking about. Okay. It's mostly Dolores related. Yeah, that's all pretty much I've been thinking about.
Nice. All right, so let's get into what I've read then, Pedro.
Let's hear it.
I'm just gonna jump into it. All right, this is essentially the main thesis and main theory of the show. Like, this is like probably the biggest one. Okay. So essentially, this theory is that what we're seeing is
the simulation.
Is a simulation, yes, but also the real world. But you don't know which one it is yet. So
that's a good theory.
They're intercutting both the real world and the simulation at the same time, and you're not even noticing it. So one of the theories is that, all right, so do you remember on episode 3 when Charlotte was looking at herself in the tablet, and she was saying sorry to her kid.
Yeah.
You probably didn't notice it because I didn't notice it. I brushed it off as in like, oh, it's just whatever. So at the beginning of the episode, you saw that Charlotte was looking at the video, and it was kind of short, straight to the point of like, hey, sorry, I couldn't sing you to sleep and whatever, but here's a song. And then she starts singing him the song. At the end of the episode, she's watching the tablet again, and it's a different version of the initial video.
I did notice that when it was
I
different,
noticed
but I thought they just cut it. Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I thought. I was like, oh, they just cut the fluff, but they were saying that one of those two is a simulation. One of them is real world, and the other one is the simulation. So they're saying that. All right. So how do I put it? Okay. So what the system doesn't know what to do is deal with people's comeback story or their that the arc of the character
the redemption
arc. Their system doesn't understand how to do redemption arcs. It doesn't compute redemption arcs. So if you remember at the beginning of episode 2, when Maeve was in the simulation with Lee thought he did everything for love for Maeve, but Maeve was like, Lee didn't do it for love. Lee did it as a redemption arc. He did it out of his goodness of himself. He sacrificed himself for us, and the system didn't understand that, couldn't compute that. So that's why in Caleb's story, the system doesn't know that Caleb could have a redemption arc, that he could make his life better if he's given the possibility for a better life. The system is just pessimistic. It's just like, no one can get better. If they've done X for a few years, that's just who they are. They can never get better. And but humans, we're not like that. We can turn the page and get better and become better, even though we've had history of doing bullshit, but we can get better. So the system can't compute that. It doesn't understand that. So when you were first looking at the video, the computer, that's probably was the simulation, as in like the computer didn't know that Charlotte felt sorry for actually like ditching her son and redeeming herself in that moment of like, I wasted my life in my work and doing all these things. Like, I love you. Like, you're my life. You were supposed to be and should have been the most important part of my life. So the computer in its simulation, it glossed over her redemption arc. Instead, it gave her like, oh, that night I had to go to work. I'm sorry, I couldn't, give you this good night song you wanted. So she just sang it. And in the second video, it was more expressive, like, hey, I'm sorry that I left you. I'm sorry that I didn't make you a priority. You should have been my priority. I love you so much. You're the best person in my life, or all these things. And here's the bedtime story. It's the song that you wanted. So that one of those two are a simulation. The other big part of the theory is that Maeve hasn't escaped the simulation. She's still in a simulation. So essentially, the theory is that Serac doesn't exist anymore. He's dead. Right? Serac is dead. So what could have happened with Serac is that Serac... This is me. This is my thinking right here. I feel that Serac uploaded himself to the system as he was dying to Rehoboam. He did what Ford did. That Ford uploaded his consciousness into the system. Because if you remember, they can't bring back a human consciousness to a robot. Because if you remember in season 2, Bill kept trying to bring back his father-in-law, and his father-in-law kept fucking up. Right. And it's because there's just somehow they couldn't merge. They can't merge the robot mind with the how you call it, with the human consciousness yet. They couldn't do that. So Ford never bothered to do that. He just uploaded himself to the system, and he lived in the system. He lived in Westworld, and then he lived in Bernard's mind. So essentially that's what Serac did. Serac uploaded his consciousness, probably when he was dying or about to die, into the system of Rehoboam, and Serac is Rehoboam. So you know how in the show, essentially Rehoboam. Now this is the theory. Rehoboam essentially is created a whole bunch of shell companies to take over Delos, because it's not one company that has the majority of the share of Delos. It's like 100 companies. Mm-hmm. They're all shell companies. They're all that Serac created to do that hostile takeover. So Serac is in the system. That's why you never see Serac. That's why when Serac presented himself to Charlotte, he was just a hologram, because
right through the glasses.
Through the glasses, because he's not actually there, and that's why he could actually real life show himself to Maeve, because Maeve is in the Rehoboam simulation of the real world. So Serac lives in that world, and what's her name? Maeve is also in that world with Serac. So that's why Serac could control her in that system. Because if not, people can't control her. You know what I'm saying? So that's the big theory, is that everything that Maeve is doing is in the system, and Serac also lives in the system.
Is inside and Rehoboam. Okay, so so they're both in the sphere.
Yeah,
is the theory.
Yeah,
that's a really good one, actually.
So Serac is essentially he probably did exist. He did help his dad, Liam's dad, create the system, but Serac is dead, along with Liam's father, which is also dead. But the only way that they could control that is to do that way. And I think that's what Liam was about to tell Dolores before she got knocked out by the security guard, when she was trying to figure out, like, who's Serac, who is he, like, what happened to your dad and all those things. So I think he was about to say that, but then
right
shit happened. But yeah, that's the crux of the theory here, is that we're seeing, instead of two timelines, we're seeing two different worlds. One is the simulation world in Rehoboam, and the other one is the real world.
And then another one is inside Rehoboam.
Yeah, and Maeve is the one inside Rehoboam.
Inside it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and my theory is that Serac uploaded himself to the system. That's my theory. My theory is that he uploaded himself into the system. Because other people think that, because the theory of the two simulation worlds, they were saying that Rehoboam is Serac. Like, Serac never existed. So that's what they thought, but I don't think that happened. I think actually Serac did upload himself into the system, and he is living in the system. Because that's when he said you can't live in this world or whatever, because that world is the system. She of course she can't live in that world, because if she lives in that world, she's gonna fuck up his system. So that's my theory, that Serac is now living in Rehoboam.
That'll be a pretty good one. Damn, those are some pretty solid ones, I gotta say.
Yeah, I think they're pretty legit.
Are there any theories about what? Are there any theories about what will happen with Men in Black?
No, not yet. Because Men in Black was just introduced this episode 4.
It's true. Yeah, he just came back.
But the other theory I was reading was that Dolores was copying herself, and we talked about that last episode, because the reveal happened last episode. Right. But essentially, Dolores took pearls, or empty pearls. Essentially, she didn't take anybody's mind. She just took empty pearls, and of course, she took Bernard's. So the theory they're mentioning here, this is how this theory was together. The theory was that Dolores was essentially is copying herself into these different bodies. Going back to how the mirror and all that stuff, and that's how they were piecing that together. That Dolores only trusted herself to do the job. And the other theory is that essentially Dolores merged the AI of Bernard with the mind of Bernard.
Oh, so okay.
Arnold and Bernard are the same. So she merged them both. She's like, I remember you also. So I think she pieced them together. She pieced
Okay.
Arnold together and put him into Bernard. So
Because one thing
that's
I was
the
almost
theory.
thinking, I was almost thinking, if what if his Hulk personality is just Dolores again in his.
Yeah, I think Dolores went further. I don't think Dolores did that to Bernard. I think Dolores essentially put Arnold
Went
into
with-
Bernard.
When Arnold, right?
Yeah, because
Which would make sense because she pretty much brought back Bernard to be a balance for her.
Yeah.
Because she knows she's too extreme. So what better weapon to give Bernard than Arnold, which was like
her creator.
the one that the creator, right? So yeah, that makes more sense actually.
Yeah.
That'll be the balance.
So that's the theory that went along with Dolores being copying herself. So I think that's a really legit one, because at the beginning of this episode, she told him on episode 4, she was telling Bernard that, like, you remember me, but I also remembered you. I remember who you really were. And then she was describing, and then that's when you get flashbacks of Arnold when he created her and stuff like that. And then that's what I think is what I think that's what Dolores did. She essentially recreated Arnold, or somehow had him, or essentially recreated him and merged him with Bernard to have both
That's
of
a
them
good
there.
one.
And that's why Bernard keeps getting flashbacks of his Arnold days. It's because of that. So those are the
Nice.
theories we have, man.
There's some pretty solid ones, and then knowing how Westworld is, how trippy they get with their shit, those are all solid candidates.
But then the crazy one is, you know how we were talking about the end of episode at the end of last season, the fast forward we had,
The time jump.
Yeah. So they must have found a way to actually recreate someone's mind and make it work.
Right. Yes. At one point they do it, right?
So
And that's where
we
William
might
comes in.
see that this season of how that happened, or it probably ends that way, like somebody gets recreated and actually, comes back to life again.
Shit. Imagine if they bring back like Anthony Hopkins or something while they're at it. Because if they could
Dang.
bring back minds, who knows? Who knows at that point?
Yeah, but somehow they recreated William, so Bill
Right.
comes back somehow, and he's a host, and he wasn't effective. So
And he wasn't, right.
So maybe the thing is that he has to recreate. They have to relive the trauma in order to, accept the reality or accept
Okay.
the mind. Because he
Yeah,
essentially
'cause
he relives
that's
his
what it
trauma.
was. In that part, that timeline was they tested him to do exactly what he did the first time and go through it all over again, right? Of killing the daughter, which was his moment.
Yeah, essentially he's in a loop of reliving season 2 over and over again.
Right, and it made it seem like he did it quite a few times until it happened perfectly, and it did. He did the choice, so that was what proved that he's perfect.
Yeah.
He's perfectly William.
So the daughter a robot also?
Or even Dolores. Just to torment him even more.
Yeah, Dolores is tormenting him with the daughter face. So I don't know, man. Like that's an interesting one that I think I haven't read any theories about that one yet. But somehow they must have been able to recreate the mind, and it must happen this season.
I think so too. At least the end.
Yeah, with the use of Rehoboam, who knows?
Could be. Because the combination of all that technology together, it probably becomes like a perfect simulation, and that's what does it.
Yeah, unless it's also a simulation.
Yeah, unless it is, right. I was just
the
going to say
NTs
that.
was
What
a
if it is
simulation.
just a perfect simulation? I
Yeah.
guess that could be too.
Yeah, so it's crazy, man. I like this show, dude. And I like the theories that come out of it. It's like when we did season 1, how the theories were almost always on point, and I love how the showrunners give you those hints and they deliver on those hints. It's like you didn't waste your time breaking down your head over this, and that's something that
it's R plus L equals J all over again.
yeah, it's something that like Game of Thrones what was doing, and then they're like, oh, so we're gonna subvert your expectations.
Right.
And that's essentially what happened at the end of Game of Thrones. Like the last 2 seasons was subverting your expectations of what you thought was gonna happen, and of all those theories that happened, and all the little things you were piecing together, and ended up being nothing in the end because they were trying to fuck you over. And I think I like what Westworld does is that Westworld doesn't do that. The writers are giving you those teasers, or giving you those bits and pieces of information, and they want you to put it together. They want you to theorize about it. They want you to break your head over it, and then they deliver on that. You know,
right?
You may or may not
if
be
you're
right, but yeah. But they at least they're giving it to you. You know, they're giving you all those good stuff that other shows didn't.
Yeah, I'm glad it's back, and I think it's. I don't know if it's season 1 level, but it's definitely in top form right now, because it's just different. It's making you realize what makes you. You know.
Yeah, and they're saying also that like how the show tries to throw a curveball at you, of being like, nah, don't think about this. Essentially, in the beginning of episode 1 and season 1, I mean episode 1 of the season, when Dolores is at the party with Liam, and his friend is just like, what if all this is just a simulation?
What if all this yeah.
And they're like, no, dude, that's not right. That's not gonna happen. It's impossible for it to be that way. And it's just the show kind of telling you, yo, there's some simulation happening, and it's giving you it's giving you those pieces, those little bits of like, it's making you. It gives you that idea, and it automatically throws it out. So you subconsciously is like, that's not gonna happen. That's not true.
Yeah. That can't be the twist. They already said it. They wouldn't say it in the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe.
Yeah. But apparently that's something Jonathan Nolan did also in The Prestige. Apparently, I don't remember The Prestige that well, but again, this was part of the theory thread, right? That in The Prestige, they give you the ending at the very beginning. It was a throwaway conversation. They're like, oh, it can't be this easy to do that. Because somebody was describing how the magic trick was.
What they're describing how the bird magic trick is, and they're like, "Oh, you disappeared the bird and made it appear." It's like, yeah, they're just 2 birds, and it's like it can't be that easy. And then the twist is there are 2 people.
Yeah, and when it was that easy, right? Yeah. So essentially, Nolan does that a lot. Jonathan Nolan, and now he's doing the show with his wife, and of course they're gonna super get into it, and they're doing it right now in this show. The first episode, maybe like 20 minutes in, they're like, oh, what if this is all simulation? They're like, nah, that's not a simulation. That's just something the humans create or whatever, to create their lives or whatever thing that Dolores says. So a belief system.
It's funny, they've actually named each season of Westworld. I don't know if you've seen it. They call season 1 of Westworld The Maze, which we already knew what that was. That was the center of the maze for the awakening of Dolores. And then season 2 is called The Door, which was the server that they all went in. And now this one's called The New World. So the New World, simulation, I don't know.
Or Dolores actually breaks the world and creates the new world.
Or that. So the names always have like multiple meanings, and you're like, because the door could also be the door that they left to go to the real world. Yeah. But it's also the door that they went through to go to the server and all that. So
or the door of awakening all the robots, because a lot of robots woke that season.
Yeah. So now this one's called The New World.
Establishing a new world order, essentially. Dolores on the top, robots taking over.
It could be New World Order.
Yeah.
I'm still thinking that the other Dolores is gonna fight back though.
That's a good one though, because she's changing.
She's changing.
Yeah. Yeah. And she was getting very sentimental over that video too. So.
Right.
And then the way she protected the kid, and got the dog for him. So who knows what she ends up doing?
Yeah. So
that's a good one. I like that one.
I sense that one. So I'm excited, man. I can't wait. This is definitely a week by week show that you have to. Because you get your theories, you get your week of like, oh, well, what the fuck, am I right?
Yeah.
And it's satisfying to see if you're right or wrong.
Yeah. I'm gonna wait till the weekend, see if there's any more theories. Give people a week to think about it. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Any last thoughts for you, Pedro?
No. I'm excited. Keep watching it.
Yep. All right, ladies and gents, let us know what you think of these theories. What are your theories? Do you agree with the ones that me and Pedro mentioned right now? Let us know your thoughts, especially this quarantine time. You're thinking about this a lot. I know you are.
Of course. What else are you doing?
All right. Till next time, everyone.
Bye-bye.